Imagine a couple. She works in marketing, earning $62,000, and he is in IT with an income of $71,000. Their combined household budget is $133,000 per year. Statistically, this places them among the top 25% of the wealthiest households in America. It would seem they should be thriving, building capital, maxing out retirement accounts, taking great vacations, and feeling completely secure. But instead, they live in a state of constant stress. These people are living paycheck to paycheck, or very close to it. Their savings would last maybe a couple of months at most, and that is an optimistic forecast. When their car needed urgent repairs last month, they had to pay for it with a credit card. Both work full-time, and sometimes overtime. They are exhausted and hardly see each other on weekdays, except for a couple of sleepy hours in the evening. The strangest part is that they did everything right. They got their degrees, built careers, got married, and combined their accounts. They bought a house in a neighborhood with good schools. They followed the successful life instructions to the letter. So why do they feel like they are drowning? Why is a family with a six-figure income so financially vulnerable? If you have ever looked at your income and thought, "We make too much money to feel this broke," this information will help you understand why. My name is Bobby, and I constantly think about why dual-income families today often live worse than single breadwinner families did 50 years ago. If you and your partner are working yourselves to the bone but the money still isn't enough, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. For decades, we've been told that two incomes are better than one. Mathematically, it seems obvious. If one person with a $50,000 salary can support a family, then two people with the same salary should have an extra $50,000 for investments and wealth. It's simple arithmetic. The problem is that in reality, things happen differently. We have witnessed one of the biggest financial deceptions in modern history, which almost no one talks about. This phenomenon is called the two-income trap. The term was coined by Elizabeth Warren in 2003, back when she was still a Harvard law professor studying bankruptcy. Together with her daughter, Amelia Tyagi, she wrote a book analyzing over 2,000 families who had filed for bankruptcy. Their conclusions are shocking. Having two incomes did not make families more protected. On the contrary, it made them more vulnerable and increased the risk of bankruptcy. Families where both parents work are more likely to go bust than single-income families. Think about it. You work twice as hard, bring home two checks, do everything the economy tells you to, and in the end, you risk losing everything. This isn't a personal financial failure, it's a systemic trap. To understand its essence, we need to go back to 1970. Back then, about 43% of women in the U.S. worked. A typical middle-class family had one breadwinner, usually the father, and one parent at home, usually the mother, managing the household. It's important to understand, one income really was enough. According to records, the average family in the 1970s could afford an average home while spending only 25% of their income on housing. They had access to quality public schools, basic health care, a car, and an annual vacation. They had leftover money, a so-called financial cushion. But most importantly, they had a backup plan. If the primary breadwinner got sick or lost their job, the second parent could enter the workforce. That second potential income was a kind of insurance policy for emergencies. Fast forward to today. Now, 57% of women work, and among married mothers, that percentage is even higher. The dual-income family has become the norm, not the exception. We have turned the backup plan into the primary survival mode. In 2023, the median household income was about $74,000.
Adjusted for inflation, that is significantly more than our grandfathers earned.
But look at the expenses.
Housing prices since 1970, adjusted for inflation, have effectively doubled.
Healthcare costs have risen by 600%.
Childcare, which used to be free because someone stayed home, now costs an average of $11,000 a year per child.
In major cities, this amount reaches $20,000 to $30,000.
The cost of higher education has soared by 1,200% since 1980. Fixed middle-class living expenses exploded, while wages barely crawled upward.
As a result, all the extra income from the second working family member was simply swallowed up by the market.
The modern family didn't become twice as rich, it became poorer because their mandatory spending rose and their backup plan went up in smoke.
You might be thinking, Bobby, we're smart. We don't spend money on nonsense.
But let's calculate the real benefit of the second income.
Due to the progressive tax scale, the second income, those $50,000, is taxed at a higher rate.
After taxes, about $32,000 to $35,000 remains take-home.
If you have children, subtract $15,000 for daycare.
That leaves $19,000. Add the costs of a second car, gas, parking, and insurance for commuting. That's another minus $8,000.
That leaves $11,000.
Now add exhaustion expenses, takeout, delivery, cleaning, and paying for lawn care, because after a 10-hour workday, no one has the energy for chores.
These expenses easily take away another $7,000 to $10,000 a year. The result, from a $50,000 salary, the family realistically keeps about $2,000 a year.
That is less than $10 per workday.
This is the psychological trap. You see large figures on your tax return and make decisions based on them.
The bank approves a huge mortgage for you, looking at the total sum. And it all works as long as both people are healthy and employed. But as soon as one person loses their job or gets sick, the whole structure instantly collapses because you have no financial flexibility. The family from 1970 had a margin of safety. You do not. Your life is a car running without oil. It drives until the first malfunction, and then the engine burns out. According to the Fed, 40% of Americans cannot cover a sudden $400 expense without debt. This isn't because they are spendthrifts, but because their mandatory expenses, housing, medicine, education, have eaten everything. An arms race occurred. Families started using two incomes to compete for homes in the best school districts, thereby driving up prices. Consequently, two incomes became not an advantage, but the minimum requirement for entry into the middle class. What should you do? You need to change the paradigm. Start treating the second income as a temporary bonus, even if it is permanent. Most people adjust their mandatory spending to the total of two salaries. Instead, build your life on the one-income foundation principle. Your fixed bills, mortgage, taxes, food, should be covered by one salary. The second income should go exclusively towards savings, debt repayment, and investments. This will require sacrifices. You'll have to live in a less prestigious house and drive a modest car while your friends are upgrading. But in 5 to 10 years, the magic of compound interest and your savings will create real security. The two-income trap isn't about money. It's about the loss of freedom of choice. We traded financial flexibility for bigger houses and nice cars. But the appearance of prosperity is not wealth, and a steady cash flow is not security. The winners are those who kept a margin of safety and refused to inflate their spending along with their income. Now you know the truth, and the only question is what you will do next.